Welcome everyone, I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and now that all of the film has been watched and all of the grades are in, it's time for the FBGP Scouting NFL Draft Prospect Preview presented by Crossover. Before we get started with our rankings, here's how we gather our grades and what they actually mean. First, we watch a minimum of 3 full games on a prospect, his best game, his worst game, and the best possible matchup. And second, we grade on 15 key points specific to the position to equal 100 points in total. Now here's what the grades you'll see by a prospect name will actually mean. Prospects that have earned grades in the 90s graded out as potential future NFL All-Pros. Prospects in the 80s are considered future Pro Bowl players. Grades in the 70s represent solid NFL starters, and grades in the 60s are players that we believe are spot starters or situational starters in the NFL. And if you notice, we don't use the word reserve or backup because we personally feel as though there's no such thing as backups in the NFL, only starters in waiting. So without further ado, let's kick off our rankings by taking a look at our top 10. Jaylen Tabor out of Florida graded out as our #1 cornerback prospect in this year's draft class. He's a corner that has exceptional ball skills, not as just catching interceptions, but playing the ball as well. And he's arguably the most technically sound corner in this year's draft class, from a hand placement standpoint to pinning the wide receiver to the sideline to redirecting and staying patient in his back pedal. Not many do it better than Tabor. Jordan Lewis checks in at #2 on our list as he's one of the more polished cornerbacks in this draft class. He has the versatility to play outside and inside, along with the added benefit of being a kickoff returner and punt return specialist. He'll be a highly sought after prospect. He may not have the elite recovery speed, but he's fast enough and technically sound enough to win most of his battles. Lewis is a prospect with high level football IQ. Looking at the rest of our top 10, Cam Sutton out of Tennessee is a player that I really like. I'm a big fan of his versatility. He can play any one of the 3 cornerback spots, and his return skills add value as he's an underrated man-to-man corner. Quincy Wilson out of Florida is a quiet yet solid all-around player. In my opinion, he'll be a consistent starter for a lot of years. He has great hand usage, and he uses that very well to stay with the wide receivers. Cordrea Tankersley out of Clemson saw a ton of action in 2015 because of Mackenzie Alexander on the opposite side. He was able to answer the call, so much so that teams start to shy away from him in 2016. I think he's ready to step in day one and play very well. Damontae Kazee of San Diego State has great football IQ and does a great job of reading quarterbacks. He fully understands route concepts and is spatially aware. I love his ability versus the run. His acceleration shrinks space in a hurry, and he's explosive out of his breaks and also has the elite ball skills that you look for at the position. Marshawn Lattimore out of Ohio State is an extremely fluid athlete that glides across the field effortlessly. He has an explosive burst out of his breaks, which helps him close on the wide receiver or break on a route if he's in off coverage. Lattimore has every physical attribute that you want in a cornerback. Ball skills and closing speed, I believe, are A+, and he has to get better a little bit from a technical standpoint. Otherwise, you'll see him chasing a lot of NFL wide receivers. I think his game compares favorably to Jonathan Joseph of the Houston Texans. Desmond King of Iowa won the Jim Thorpe Award in 2015 and was solid all week long at the Senior Bowl. He has terrific football IQ to go along with above average ball skills. Now, he may not be the dynamic athlete, but he is a dynamic football player that's good on both ends of defense. I can foresee King making the transition to more of a safety role later on in his career. Adoree Jackson is a tremendous athlete playing both sides of the ball. In my opinion, enhances his ball skills, and he's like a wide receiver in that regard when the ball is in the air. Now, on the flip side, playing both sides of the ball has sort of stymied his growth as a corner. I believe he'll focus on the defensive side of football as a pro. You'll start to see his game get a lot better from a technique point of view. He's still more of a football player than a cornerback, and with his read and react skills, I think he's better off in off coverage. I came away highly impressed with Corn Elder's game. He's a smart football player that shows good leadership out there on the field and is solid in every facet of the position on both ends. He's being very underrated right now by many, but Elder has the skills and the versatility as both a slot corner or on the outside to play a long time in the NFL. He's really impressive in zone coverage and shows the patience needed to excel at the position. Moving on to prospects 11 through 20, and Howard Wilson out of Houston still has upside to his game, especially from a technique standpoint. He explodes out of his breaks and has above average ball skills. I also like how active he is versus the run as well. Chidobe Awuzie out of Colorado has the ability to play inside and out, which means he has tremendous value as a prospect. Now, he can stand to add some strength, but his ability to mirror and match gives you a lot of flexibility as a defensive coordinator. Brendan Langley out of Lamar had arguably the best week of work for the cornerbacks at the Senior Bowl. He's a long corner with the athleticism to play either the field or boundary side. Taylor Reynolds out of James Madison was a two-time football game plan All-American and has good all-around game. He's better off in off-man or zone coverage. I think he really drives on the football well and shows the natural ball skills to make plays. Channing Stribling out of Michigan is a joy to watch. Now, despite his slender frame, he's a physical corner. He has to tone down the handiness of his game, but there's no doubt in the physical tools, and he has both the perfect cornerback mindset and athleticism to succeed. Marlon Humphrey out of Alabama has solid all-around game, and while he does not have the ball skills of a Richard Sherman, he does have the ball skills of a corner that'll end up with a ton of pass breakups. He's a good open field tackler and one who could still get better from a technical standpoint. His game reminds me of New Orleans Saints cornerback Delvin Breaux. It's a shame that Sidney Jones of Washington injured his Achilles at the end of his pro day. Hopefully, he'll get the opportunity to rest the entire season and come back in 2018 ready to go. He's a wiry built defensive back, and obviously he has to add strength as he tends to get out-muscled by bigger or more physical wide receivers within the route. He has tremendous recovery speed to get back into the play, and as an off-coverage field corner, I think he can hit the ground running. Dante Blackman of Kennesaw State has outstanding ball skills and rarely drops an opportunity to pick off a pass. Blackman has great hand-eye coordination, and that coincides with his great sense of timing. He's better as a plant and drive player as opposed to coming out of his breaks. That's where you like to see growth in his game as he moves forward. Jamal Agnew of San Diego is an explosive athlete that gets out of his breaks so quick that he's able to bait quarterbacks into making bad decisions. He's also very solid in man coverage. He matched up versus the tight end Eric Saubert, who's also a really good NFL draft prospect out of Drake, and completely took him out of the game plan. And he's coming off a really good week at the NFLPA game. Jeremy Cutler out of Middle Tennessee State is one of the more underrated cornerbacks in this year's draft class. He's one of the most explosive coming out of his breaks. Now, he gets from point A to point B in a hurry, and that acceleration can be used to beat a weaker armed quarterback. So don't let the size fool you. He also has very underrated press skills. He's consistently able to connect with his punch to reroute wide receivers, and with solid football IQ, you can tell he was well coached out there at Middle Tennessee State. He's a good technician that can fluidly get out of his breaks and run lockstep with any wide receiver. Tre'Davious White out of LSU checks in at number 21 as we move on to prospects 21 through 30. White's footwork is outstanding, and you can understand why he's such a really good returnman. I think he's an ideal slot corner because of how he can mirror and match and play in space. Ashton Lampkin of Oklahoma State was solid all week long at the East-West Shrine game. On film, pre-ankle injury, you saw a bit more juice in the burst department. I think you'll slowly start to see him regain that moving forward, and what you're getting is a physical corner that's able to press and excel in man coverage. Akilo Witherspoon is the type of corner that can thrive in a man or zone scheme. He's a good cornerback with length that plays the ball really well. Now, quicker wide receivers can cause an issue on comeback routes, so getting out of his breaks quicker is where you'd like to see him grow his game. Rasul Douglas of West Virginia plays a lot like Tony Lippett of the Miami Dolphins. He has terrific football instincts, and I think he's best off the line of scrimmage where he can read and drive on the football. Douglas has the length, the hands, and the ball skills to succeed, but is still a little bit raw in his technique. Devin Bryant out of San Diego is a counterpart to Jamal Agnew in that outstanding Torero's secondary. He's been a consistent starter his entire career at San Diego, and he's polished and extremely smooth in and out of his back pedal. He's a technically sound, proficient cornerback that keeps him with the wide receivers and also involved in the play. Bryant also has the ball skills that you'd want. He's able to turn and find the football late in phase and get his hands on it. I was a color commentator for the Slippery Rock Westchester game earlier in the season, and I came away very impressed with Titus Howard's game at 6'2", 175. Howard knows how to use the length that he has to his advantage. He has active hands and consistent in using them both in press and in attacking the football. I think he's an excellent press corner. He utilizes the 5-yard rule to his advantage and shows the ability to press with his hands and his feet to reroute the wide receiver to the sideline. I think he's a really solid Division II prospect. Gareon Conley of Ohio State is an early entry in the draft and still has a ton of upside to his game. He's ideally a slot corner and also a field guy. Conley has very good athleticism and fluidity and also attacks downhill in the running game. He shows no fear in that regard, and I keep harping on it, but that fluidity he has is definitely special. He can turn and run with any wide receiver that he'll face and isn't shocked by the ball when it's time to make a play. Esdra Robinson of Tennessee State was solid at the Senior Bowl. He's raw technique-wise, but has the want-to and the hands to give himself a chance early on. He can be a good squat and react corner, but has to clean up his back pedal and coming out of his back pedal in transition. He's a physical corner that's able to frustrate wide receivers. Now, he uses his hands well in man coverage and is also capable of blocking step for step with wideouts. Willie Billy Jr. of Virginia Union was a standout at the NFL Regional Combine in Washington, D.C., so much so he made me go back to the tape and check him out because I hadn't heard of him prior. Now, he has big-time athleticism. He played both corner and safety at Virginia Union and also has the skills to play inside or out on the boundary as a corner. He has tremendous explosiveness out of his breaks and is able to shrink space downhill or across the field as a safety. Bakari Blount was another DC Regional Combine standout. He's ideally suited as a boundary corner or slot corner despite playing the field predominantly at Assumption. In zone coverage, I think he's better on the field side. He has an explosive burst and great instincts for the position. Blount is a very fluid athlete that's coming off a good career at Assumption. Taking a look at cornerbacks 31 through 40, and there's still some quality cover guys on this list. Xavier Coleman of Portland State reminds me a lot of Craig Mager of the Los Angeles Chargers. He's in your face, plays with length, and uses both his feet and his hands to pressure and reroute wide receivers. Tony Bridges of Ole Miss competes hard and is very underrated in the run support department. I like how active and scrappy he is at the line of scrimmage. He was solid at the East-West Shrine game and has some upside as he's only played 2 years at the FBS level. Jalen Myrick out of Minnesota was terrific at the East-West Shrine game as well. He's a boundary or slot corner in the NFL and has return skills to add value. I think he excels in off coverage where he can read and drive on the ball. Aaron Pinton of Missouri is a solid physical corner that wins well at the line of scrimmage and also early within the route, both of which give him a chance to ultimately win the rep. He's good in off coverage as well. Nate Harrison out of Temple was a late bloomer who played wide receiver at one point during his Temple career. He's a good physical corner with some upside coming off a strong Senior Bowl week. And Arthur Mollett is an excellent slot corner that you can trust inside the red zone on the boundary because of his technique. He can function on the boundary as a zone guy, but lacks the explosive first step. So I think when you look at his game, you can see that he's also a very good blitzer coming off the corner. Marquez White of Florida State has a lot to like about his game. He's physical and plays with attitude. White excels in press coverage and plays a lot like a smaller version of Brandon Browner. I can see him excelling in a cover 3 scheme or even a Tampa 2. He has great length and a solid set of skills. Tristan Deku of Oregon State is an underrated prospect. He's very good at staying in between the quarterback and the receiver and is also able to quickly get to the receiver and make a play. He knows how to play with length and isn't afraid to lay the wood in a running game. Daquan Holmes is an impressive prospect that's coming off an incredible career at American International. He played a lot of safety there at AIC. In my opinion, his athleticism and skills translate better inside as a slot corner or slot defender. He has very good instincts and ball skills, and while he may not have the explosive range to play deep third, he has the awareness, quicks, and ball skills to thrive in a short zone area. Jarret Cats of Columbia had a lot of scouting buzz coming into the season, and rightfully so. He has the length of an Antonio Cromartie, but now he's not explosive of an athlete as Cromartie is, but he has the same type of cornerback skills. I think he'll be a better boundary corner than a field guy where he can maximize his length and utilize the sideline as his friend. He has above average ball skills as well. Tied at number 40 with Marquez White is Austin Davis out of Division III Kane University, and this is a guy that has outstanding instincts and ball skills. I was a color commentator for both of their ECAC bowl games the last 2 years, and in each contest, Davis made a game-changing interception. He has the ability to match up one-on-one in the slot, which I think he'll be best at, or out on the boundary. Now, Davis also shows good ability in run support and is definitely flying under the radar. Fabian Moreau out of UCLA was solid at the East-West Shrine game, and in my opinion, he's an ideal Tampa 2 zone corner where he can be physical before passing a guy off to the safety. He's not that bad in man coverage either. I just think he can be fully maximized as a zone corner. Kevin King out of Washington is 6'3" and definitely plays that way, which is a great thing. This definitely shows up in how solid he is in man coverage. Jeff Hall out of Nichols is very quick coming out of his breaks where he has to plant and drive on the football, but he's a bit inconsistent coming out of his back pedal for in-breaking routes. But he's a technically sound player and has above average ball skills. Terrence Singleton out of Prairie View A&M has the versatility to play either safety or corner, and I think he's physical enough to handle the boundary out there in the NFL. Jeremy Clark was also a safety at Michigan before moving to corner. In 2015, he was much better as a press man guy than an end zone. I think he's a project prospect with some upside. Rayshawn Clark of Albany was excellent at the DC Regional Combine, and he has explosive athleticism and plays with great length. He has to become less handsy in coverage as a pro, and it's a shame that Will Likely was injured during this season. He's a smaller corner with good instincts and quicks. He'll bring value as a returner initially, but definitely plays bigger than his listed size. Billy Ekans of Ohio Dominican is a prospect that can also play safety as a corner. He's very strong in run support. He's a boundary side guy that shows no hesitation in flying up to help stop the run. He was utilized a lot on run blitzes as a collegian. He's also good in press zone coverage. He reads and reacts extremely well, and I like how consistently he's able to beat the wide receiver to the spot for the football. Uriah Harris is yet another talented corner coming from that Texas A&M Commerce program. You can tell he was well coached out there in college. Harris excels in off coverage, both man and zone, where he can read and react quickly. In zone, he's technically sound in getting his depth as well as being spatially aware. Harris has above average ball skills and is a solid open field tackler. James Gales got better each year at Princeton, which culminated in an all-Ivy League performance in 2016. He has very good read and react skills, especially in zone coverage. He's solid and dependable in run support as well, and I think his best football is ahead of him. Rounding out our cornerback rankings with prospects 51 through 53, Dez Lawrence was very productive for the North Carolina Tar Heels, and Ray Buchanan Jr., yes, the son of NFL great Ray Buchanan, was a tremendous playmaker for the Panthers of Northern Iowa. Malik Hall out of Tennessee Tech has solid technique for the position and shows the ability to pin receivers to the sideline. He was a Football Game Plan preseason All-American that closes pretty quickly on the ball carrier and has good short area bursts, which is why he's able to be effective at returning punts and has good special teams value. So that's a wrap for our 2017 FBGP Scouting Draft Prospect Preview presented by Crossover. To see more of our individual scouting reports, follow us on Twitter at FBGP Scouting and bookmark the page, footballgameplan.com/FBGP Scouting. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/footballgameplan, where you can get all of our scouting videos, mock drafts, pro day videos, and interviews with NFL draft prospects. And one more thing, subscribe to us on iTunes under Football Game Plan Podcast.